We ask the good spirits for protection, for guidance, so that we can be inspired in our studies. We may feel the presence of the benefactors and use this knowledge to better ourselves, to understand life, and to grow in the direction of our Heavenly Creator. And we start this meeting with gratitude in our hearts. Okay, everyone, so today you have me for the Medium's book. I'm going to be sharing with you my screen. Last time we stopped at item 24 from the Medium's book. Just 1 second, let me just and is first part, chapter 3, methodology. Yes. So Zoraida, can you read for us item 24?
Yes, of course. In addition to these overall categories of opponents, there are many nuances, among which may be counted disbelievers out of cowardice, who will find courage when they see that others have not been harmed by spiritism. Disbelievers out of religious scruples, whom an enlightened study will teach that spiritism is supported by the very fundamentals of religion itself, that it respects all belief systems, and that some of its effects are the awakening of the religious sentiments in those who do not already have them, and the strengthening of them in those who are irresolute. Additionally, there are disbelievers out of pride, out of a contrary spirit, negligence, frivolousness, etc.
Okay, let's stop here. So just to recap, Kardec in this chapter was talking about different kinds of disbelievers, different categories related to the more materialistic people. And so in this item, he's going to talk about the general public, so to say, why some people will actually be more how do I say that?
Believers.
Pardon me?
Believers?
No, more refrain more from believing or going after any sort of belief, So some of them will really be afraid. So when we are talking about spiritism, or when we are talking about spiritualism and spirits, there are people that will really be afraid of what is happening. And not, I'm sure some of you may have experience in that in the past, not so long ago. If you were going to be saying that you were a spiritualist or a spiritist, people will think maybe, you were kind of inclined to witchcraft or something, hocus pocus, and what sort of, things you were going to be dealing with, and they would be even afraid to go to spiritist meetings because they were thinking, they had the understanding that spirits were going to be manifesting all the time, all of this. So in this way, they will be kind of, cautious and see first if they meet someone that uh, uh, they may trust, and see if nothing happens to them. Maybe in this case, I will see what is going to happen. Others, because they are they are devout to some religion, they may be afraid of getting in touch with this knowledge, or if places where we are going to be talking about spiritism, because they fear they may be condemned by their own religion, by their own faith. Like, for instance, people will feel afraid that, they may burn in hell if they get in touch with spirits, or if they get in touch with spiritualists. So there are all those kind of things that we have to take into consideration. Others that they will, like they say here, out of pride, they will not think about, submitting to a power that they have to accept are superior to them. And others because just they couldn't care less about any kind of understanding, any kind of spiritual pursuit. And so they feel very comfortable where they are, and they will not dedicate themselves. I think this is a very important chapter that Kardec brings to us, and with in a way to try to enlighten us, not actually to throw to waste our time. There is a phrase in the Gospels that I always thought, at the same time that this phrase is very shocking, it's very enlightening. When Jesus supposedly said, "Do not throw pearls to pigs,"
Mm.
meaning in this way not to offend anyone, not to call anyone an animal, but to say, there are species or there are people that will not be able to understand the preciousness of some things you are giving to them. So why waste your time? Why bother? Why try to impose things that they are not ready to accept? And if we think about ourselves, all of us, we had the same process. We've been going through the same process. Not long ago, we were the ones that perhaps couldn't care less about anything related to spiritual things. And now something has triggered that, and we have been, studying and trying to dedicate ourselves. So everyone has their own time. Any questions, comments, participation? No? Okay, so let's read it 25. Zoraida, can you read for us, please?
Yes. Let us not forget a category that we shall call disbelievers out of deception. It includes those who have gone from being exaggeratedly confident to disbelief because they have suffered deception. Thus, being disheartened, they have abandoned and rejected everything. They are like those who deny Spiritism in good faith because they feel they have been misled. This is nonetheless the result of both an incomplete study of Spiritism and a lack of experience. If there are those who are deceived by spirit, it is usually because they ask them improper questions or ones that they cannot answer, or because they are not enlightened enough to distinguish truth from error. Also, many people only see Spiritism as a new form of divinization and think that spirits exist for the purposes of fortune telling. In fact, frivolous and mocking spirits do not waste the opportunity to entertain themselves at these individuals' expense. Thus, they promise girls that they will find marriage and assure the ambitious that they will receive honors, inheritances, and hidden treasures, so on and so forth. The result? Frequent and unpleasant deceptions that serious and prudent persons always know how to avoid.
Okay, so here we are talking about another category that people that let's say, was attending, was reading, where was somehow had knowledge, previous knowledge about spiritual things, spiritism, and all of a sudden they they suffer a blow in terms of and they question their faith. Here, although this item is talking mostly about the misunderstanding that we can find in terms of what to expect from the spirits and what to expect from spiritism. And of course, people will go for different reasons. And many of us, what happens is not necessarily because we have received dubious information from spirits, that we have received a communication that somehow is misleading us, but many times because of our own expectations. Many people, it is said that most of us, we decide to go and look for spiritual things, for spiritual values, for a spiritual place due to some problems or due to pain that we are enduring in our lives. And what happens is many people will come with the expectation that by attending places of, more spirituality, they will fall in the good graces of the good spirits, the benefactors, God. And it's like basically they are waiting for a trade. Like, I'll go, I'll apply myself, but in return, I'm expecting something. And we know that it's not this way that things happen. Whatever we have to go through in life, we will have to go through those things. What Spiritism helps us in the sense that we will at least understand why we are enduring certain things, why certain things has been happening to us. So many times we will see people disappointed because they were expecting their problems to be solved almost overnight. And so in this way, they will start questioning their faith. But also in this particular case where Kardec is describing here, with the expectation that we have from the communication of spirits, and this was much more common at the time of Kardec than it is today. We cannot forget that all this movement of spiritualism, of spiritism, it started with the turning tables. Every place there were people dedicating themselves to that, to communicating with spirits, thinking that the spirits were there just to come and to answer to their whims. And of course, today, knowing that it's not because you're a spirit that you know everything that there is to know, knowing that there are different categories of spirit, that of course, especially if we are looking for more trivial answers, we are going to find, let's say, more ordinary spirits, spirits more to our level or even below our level, that will entertain us with our desire for this kind of interchange with the spirit world. And of course, if this is the aim that we are looking for, spirituality, we will be bound by deception, and therefore we are not going to remain, so to say, faithful to spiritual values. Any questions or comments? Am I talking too much? Should I let you do the explanation a little bit? Or okay. 26.
Okay. The most numerous of all classes which cannot be included among the class of opponents, consists of hesitant individuals who are usually spiritualists out of principle. Most of them have a vague intuition about spiritual ideas, and they aspire towards something that they are not quite able to define. They only need to coordinate and formulate their thoughts. Spiritism appears to them like a ray of light, the clarity that dissipates the fog. Consequently, they avidly embrace it, for it sets them free from the anguish of uncertainty.
So there are individuals like Kardec is saying to us here that sometimes almost only need a little push. That somehow these spiritual ideas are not something that they deny, that they negate, so to say. They feel within themselves that there must be something in there, uh, but they still are not so sure whether they should pursue this. They are still, like it says here, hesitant and I mean, for all of us that have gone through this phase, I think it's easy for us to understand that, of everything that it entails for you to embrace a new perspective of life. Uh, and of course, it's not an easy path to take. Many times we will not be understood by, you know, the people that we love, the from our family, our friends, and it makes it harder for us to really go with our inclination. And I say inclination because, like it says here, it's already there. It's just a matter of a person taking the first step.
Yeah.
But when the person finally decides to do that, it will a new world is going to open up before their eyes. And so that's why once you, for a serious purpose, you really get involved with all that, you're no longer going to be the same. Which doesn't mean here we are not talking about, the number of times that we are going to be attending the spiritist centers, etc. We are talking about really inner transformation, in the sense of once you learn how to read and write, you don't go back.
Right.
And you don't deny that anymore. That is a new world that is going to open up before your eyes. So it's very important for us to understand that it has nothing to do with being an assiduous person, attending a spiritist center, reading all the books. No, it's an inner change that happens within us, and with the way that I will look the world. I normally say to people that, to me, although I started very early, but of course, the more I grew up and I start actually to understand, because before, of course, I love it, I wanted to go, I felt good, I was really attracted to everything that I couldn't understand within my reach. But of course, only when I got older is that I really could start understanding in depth what all the books and the talks and etc. were talking about. And so I say that, to me, was like, before I could have this understanding and knowledge, it was like I used to see the world in black and white, and after that it was seeing the world in colors. And once you see the world in colors, you don't want the black and white anymore.
Yeah.
You want to keep on going through the same direction. So it's just a matter of being this little push. From our perspective, we have to be very careful, because we should never try to impose to people our ways of thinking. this can actually delay even more people that may be in this way. Okay, any question or comment?
Yeah, just that I like to say, I don't know if it corresponds to this, what you just explained, but if I could go back to when I started the spiritual uh, education, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were like not clear what was going on, just exactly what it says here. And we had to clear this so-called fog because we didn't understand. You know,
Mm-hmm.
our mother was there trying to teach us and explain to us, but we had a vague idea. We didn't know
Mm-hmm.
until, you know, you embrace it, like it says here, and you see, you know, what it really is all about. But isn't it most of all, most people start with this, you know, this idea of not understanding what spiritism is, especially if you were brought up in a Catholic surrounding, so to speak. And and then as time goes on, as you start studying little by little, you know, you embrace it, just like it says here. So I don't know, it's somehow I'm kind of putting it together to what this statement is saying. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you are absolutely right, Sarada, because it is this process, you see, and but it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one in our times because even when we meet people that they say that they are religious or that they follow a certain religion, if you go deep into that, you know, they are typical cases that they are, let's say, Catholic, that only go to church in a special occasion,
Right.
that only pray in the special occasions. Most of them, of course, when you are in trouble, and that they have a vague idea. And you see, so to them it's quite hard when they see people that really have more of a conviction. And even to ourselves, when we start, you know, being exposed to that, like you were saying, in terms of your mother, for instance, like you say, I do believe that somehow we have to expose people to that, but without imposition. And I'm not talking about children. I think we have to try to impose a little bit. But when you reach an adult age, not only you can no longer do that, but we shouldn't anyway, because then it's going to come with this inner call as well. So when you know, it's like you hear a ringing that now says, now you're ready for, you know, to pursue this kind of way. And it's when we will see more uh, uh, defined transformations as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
Anyone else? Or
Okay,
okay,
we'll continue.
okay, 27.
David, if we now take a look at the various categories of believers, we will first discover those who are spiritists without realizing it. Properly speaking, these are a variety of nuance of the preceding class. Even though they have never heard of the Spiritist doctrine per se, they have an innate sentiment about the grand principles that result from it. And this sentiment is reflected in certain passages of their writings, in discourses, to extend that if you listen to them, you would believe that they were true initiates. Many examples of these individuals can be found among sacred and secular writers alike, and among poets, orators, moralists, and ancient and modern philosophers. Mm.
Okay. Now, this is a very interesting category as well, because, and one that we should all envy, be envious about. There are people that we meet that, if you ask them about, you know, religion, they will say, "No, I don't have any religion," or nothing, you know. But when you look at them, when you look at their behaviors, when you look at their morals, they many times have much more than people that do say that they have a religion, and they may even be one of those that really apply themselves to that religious pursuit, so to say. So how can we explain that? Of course, reincarnation. People that have been building this knowledge of God, of the creation, of their immortality, of their purpose here on matter, and they don't need, let's say, this structure of a religion, of a set of knowledge to help them to lead a life of righteousness.
Right.
Which is something very hard for us to say to ourselves. I don't know if I would say that anymore, but for many years I remember that I said, I don't know what Jussara would be if she didn't have this, this structure to help her in right on the path of righteousness. Maybe I would be a crazy one. But there are people that they do not need that. And I hear quite so often people saying, "Oh no, my one of the spouses, oh she or he doesn't do anything, he doesn't believe, but at the same time I'm learning from him or her, a mother or a father or whoever, so much with their behaviors." This is also very good in terms of thinking. And we often have this question of people saying, what about those that do not have any kind of faith, or do not have the understanding that Spiritism brings to us? Is God being good in the sense of not providing them? Why God, if his God is good, is not providing them with the same opportunities providing us? You see, there are people that do not need anything.
Right.
And so we hope that one day we will going to be someone like these people. Sometimes I think I remember, and you all know how much I like and admire Abraham Lincoln, and thinking about himself, and even if we think about Benjamin Franklin, they all had their set of values. They attended church because that was what they were supposed to be, but they both showed that they were not in total agreement with some values that they were learning from church. There is even one of the famous quotes from Abraham Lincoln that he says, "How come God could be just if I'm at war with someone and I pray for God to favor me? How can God favor me and not favor the other side?" So all this questioning that goes beyond some structures that we still have that no longer fulfill our understanding, our reasoning, our spiritual growth, which unfortunately is something that is happening with religion nowadays, because they still want to rely on dogma instead of going and trying to progress more. And with that, they miss the chance of offering so much to the followers.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking, uh, aside from the obvious question that people they don't want to believe in, and there's nothing we can do, on why the resistance of um, towards the spiritism. And then I was thinking about the word spiritism, and then of course the spirit. And I came from a Christian background, so raised in Catholic church. So we don't talk too much about spirit. And when you look through our history, usually, you know, you have guardian angels. If you talk about spirits, the Holy Spirit, and you have the soul, you have the saints, you have all these different words that they are all spirit. But when you're going to describe something that is evil and it's not good, then they mention the word spirit. So I was thinking maybe, you know, subconscious or whatever, people, they learn that whatever is associated with the word spirit is not good. And then perhaps is one of the resistance of spiritism, because the word is right there. Mm-hmm. And even with places, you know, we call the spiritual realm, they call heaven, they call hell, they call purgatory, but they don't mention nothing with spirit per se. So I would like to hear your thoughts on, you know, how historically speaking, the word spirit receive a connotation of a bad thing and an evil thing.
Yeah, well, this we could write a thesis about it. But I think the turning point for that was actually when we learned that the idea of reincarnation was removed from from Christianity, and when our vision, and I'm saying our in the sense of us belonging to the church at that time, was still much more with a name of the material life than the spiritual one, and with a name of controlling everyone, like we know that the church, the control that the church had for so long, and in a way still has. But up to the 19th century, the control that the church had on people's lives were enormous. You know, they controlled the kings, they controlled the governments. They decided to be much more focused on the idea of the material life and controlling that, of course with a name. And many, we are not going to say bad thing about the whole church, of course, but many with the good intention. And we were grown into the idea that all of that was a bad way of conducting ourselves. We have that even from the Old Testament, when in a way, by leading the Hebrew people through the desert, Moses had to forbid them to have this kind of interchange with the spirits, with a name of, you know, just pursuing material favors. And so everything started from there. It was completely distorted. It was, you know, building up. They built this up each time more. They had to, you know, to come with incredible, irrational ideas about the Holy Trinity, about to the point of women having no soul. Only man had a soul, and unless you were a saint, but they don't explain how you can be a woman, become a saint, and then you gain a soul. So that there is so much distortion and incongruences in terms of those understanding. But the thing is, you're right, Renato, we have been reincarnating for so long, you know, in following this kind of, or this line of thinking, that even today we have, or some of us will have more resistance to try to associate. And then there was always this, you know, this idea that spirits, if you are talking to spirits, it has to be, the bad ones, and why can we communicate with the bad ones but not with the good ones? So I think it's much more in this line, which is a shame. It has been prolonging our progress just because of this kind of prejudice. Like even today when we talk about a child will only grow into prejudice according to the teachings, the examples they receive from their parents and society. And that's what we have been learning in terms of, spirits, communicating with spirits, presence of spirits for so long. So it's not so easy for us to rid ourselves from this idea and to start embracing a different idea. And everything that it entails, because again, it's not an easy thing for you to think, okay, if at the same time you don't want it to cease to exist, you also don't know exactly what you do with the rest of your eternal life, and to have to cope with the responsibilities of everything that you have been doing, and etc., or thinking about changing yourselves because now you have a different understanding of life, immortal life. So it is a lot to take. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Mhm. Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Drew,
Yes.
I have been, holding myself here, but I'm giving up and I'm going to say something. I must say, and you don't know this because you have not been here before. I'm not particularly fond of this beginning of the Medium's book. Although Elmo does not agree with me, I think Kardec was extremely defensive in this beginning of this work. Anyway, uh, I, well, I think we are losing what's the point of this particular chapter. If you guys remember on point 19, or 1919, whatever, Kardec was trying to reason with us why people even presented with the facts that they do not convince themselves of, obviously between the lines of the existence of the spirits, that the spirits are us after we discarnate. And I don't know, I think he's just dwelling too long on that. I have a lot of resistance with this particular part of the Medium books. I'm not so sure. I really don't know how to express myself, but anyway, there's a part of heaven and hell that I always repeat in my classes, and if you allow me to, it says that it's chapter 1, item 14, second part. The serious spiritist does not limit himself to believe because he understands. And he understands because he reasons. So I wonder why, in the Medium's book, he was not a little more objective and shorten those many items in a summary thing like, well, we got a reason. If you reason, we can understand. And if we can understand, it's not, blind faith anymore. It's understanding that gives them, another phrase I love, a mathematical certainty that this is true. Sorry, Jussara.
No, that's fine, Luis. first of all, what I think is absolutely fantastic about Spiritism is that everyone is entitled to think what they want to think. So, and Kardec is the first one that invites us to think, to reason, and only accept things after, you know, you reason about it and you agree that this is the point. This is it. So I think all this kind of, you know, questioning is very welcome, because it's the core of Spiritism. When, if we as a Spiritist start preventing people to come and to manifest themselves as you just did, we are not being true Spiritists, because it defeats the purpose of Spiritism, which is to accept things after you reasoning that. So I think it is wonderful. And also the second point, I was actually kind of laughing, because when João told me, so now I'm going to to tell you a secret. When João told me that this was the chapter that I said that I was supposed to be going through with you today, I said, oh no, this chapter is so boring. Why couldn't it be, you know, something more exciting and, you know, that we have in the Spirits book? Okay, so I said, well, at least let me read the chapter, prepare myself. And when I started reading the chapter to prepare myself for today, I felt so ashamed. Because I don't know, I think the spirits played a trick on me, or whatever. I don't know how to explain. Each line, each one of those items, when I was reading them, I was thinking, my God, how could I have thought or said that? As soon as I finish here and João finishes there, I'm going to tell him, please just consider what I said, because Kardec is brilliant here. You see, so I'm sorry, I really have to share that with you. And but I do have to agree with one point, which is sometimes I think, you know, Kardec, maybe for the sake of being, I mean, he was a professor, okay, of being very clear, of helping us in structuring ourselves better, in getting the picture better. And you see that clearly in the Spirits book, when sometimes I can only imagine this, you know, when I'm reading there, the Spirits saying, again? Are you going to ask me this again? You know, and sometimes they even say that, well, as I told you in the previous question. And so I don't know if it is Kardec's style. We always have to remember that although he is a superior spirit, to say the least, okay, part of the group of spirits that belong to the group of spirits of truth, he was also a man of his time. And as a man of his time, he had the influence of, you know, of what happened then, of the style of writing, of, you know, the line of reasoning. And I think here, and sometimes, like, I agree really with you that he goes and, okay, I already read that. You already asked that. Why asking this again? There is no need for that, but who am I to question? And in this chapter in particular, which is the most defined thing that us as spiritists have to do in our day-to-day lives with people, is he like kind of putting a frame on us and say, wait, I know you are completely overtaken by the beauty of the spiritual values. You wanted to change the world. You will become an idealist, because how come you are going to get in touch with all of this and not to be excited and wanted to share with people and change people's mind? And then he says, wait a minute, don't do it. Why? And I'm going to give you all the reasons why, about different categories of spirits, of people, of situations that you will find. And actually, even compromising myself, being extremely prolixed in terms of, trying to explain, just don't waste your time or something like that. And I'm going to give you this shortcut in terms of you learning things that I had to learn the hard way, and that we all in my time have to go through the hard way. Because I'm sure, and even when you watch the movie Kardec, when he is there with the Science Academy that he belonged to, how astonished he was, because to him, a scientific mind as well, that was so clear, and he couldn't make sense exactly, equate the idea why it was so clear to him and not to others. And so that's why I think, in this chapter, he went to the trouble of giving us specifics, so as to help us, even in terms of our frustrations. I mean, that's the way I see it. You see, but I know, I understand. I know from where you're coming, from what you're saying. I understand that sometimes we just say, enough is enough. Okay. Okay, I got the picture. I don't need to know that there are, all these details, the frivolous, the halfway, and we are going to go through one here that I really have a little trouble understanding, because they say, to me, both of these categories are the same, but he shows it's not. So, okay, I'm not going to discuss with Kardec because of a minute detail that led him to classify one as being something, we are going to see later on in this chapter here, and the other one as being something else. But when you read it, you say, I had to read it twice, because I said, wait a minute, this is the same thing. He said there, and he gave it the name. How he gives a different name to this one here, and it feels the same, but there is a nuance of something different. So, just go with it and allow Kardec to be, more like a teacher, that he really wants to know that people got it. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we read what, the 27 or
Yes.
no, okay, 28.
28. Okay. Among those who have become convinced by directly studying the subject, we may distinguish: 1, those who believe purely and simply in the manifestations, who consider Spiritism to be a simple science of observation that demonstrates a series of more or less curious phenomena. We call them experimental Spiritists.
Read the other one to us.
Yes. 2, those who see in Spiritism more than just a phenomenon, who understand Spiritism's philosophical aspect. They believe in the morality that results from it, but they fail to practice it, and the doctrine's actual influence upon their character is thus insignificant or none at all. They do not change their habits, nor would they deprive themselves of one single pleasure. Misers remain miserlier. The proud remain full of themselves. The envious and jealous remain aggressive. They see Christian charity as nothing more than a pretty maxim. They are imperfect spiritists.
So now Kardec is trying to classify us as spiritists. Actually, I'm trying to write a talk about, the 7 stages of becoming a spiritist. Kardec only lists 4, but to me, I put it 7. I like that number better. Anyway, here he calls, there are people that are only attracted, only curious about phenomena. And they don't want to go farther than that. Okay, and which is something already. We are not here to criticize at all. It's just a statement that this is what they are looking for, to see if really there is the survival of the soul, if they can communicate, materialize, etc. The other ones, which is more serious, are people that, in a way, they have been exposed to the philosophical aspect of spiritism, to the philosophy of spiritism. So they have the understanding, of morality, like they say here. But even if they do know it, if they do understand it, it is not enough for them to change their ways, to give up their old ways, and not to just think about in a short term, with a short-term vision, so to say. So although they will be called themselves as spiritists, they cannot be qualified exactly as spiritists, because a spiritist is going to be the one that is actually applying oneself to become and to apply the teachings in their day-to-day lives, in their spirits. So in this sense is when, they are still imperfect, because they have the knowledge, they have the understanding, but they lack the will to go to the next step. Okay, any questions or comments? You say something, Paco, or you're on mute? You're on mute.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Could you go over that, the first one? Experimental spiritists. That manifestation, plans about that one.
Okay.
The first one.
Yeah, okay, I'll go again. You were cutting a little bit, but I think you were asking me to go explain the experimental spiritist a bit more, right? We call experimental because normally when we are talking about science, about the methodology of science, we are talking always about experiment. We use this terminology experimental, and I think that's why Kardec decided to put it there, experimental, in the sense that, and I know people like that even today. I remember it's been a while, I think like about 6 years ago, everything that happened to me a while ago that I do not know how to precise, I say that it happened between 6 and 8 years ago. 6 and 8 years ago was a very exciting time in my life. Everything happened during those 2 years. But João and I, we went to a conference on this psychic research group, the parapsychology, and for the first time they opened to the public in a way, and it was about mediumship. And of course, I said, well, it's a good opportunity for us to get in touch with people that are studying this parapsychology, etc. And especially to see what they are going to be talking in terms of mediumship. Well, I arrived there, and many of the talkers dealt with the same thing. They were talking about experiences that they were doing over and over and over and over again to try to prove something. So I remember they were talking about an experiment that they were doing with the spirits. I don't quite recall the name of the place, but it's in California. There is a place that in one of the those hills, or the shores, the California hill shores, that a lady that they called a blue lady appears. It's a spirit of a blue lady that died in that region, love story, something like that. I don't quite recall very much. So what are they doing? They go there conducting experiences to see with different mediums to see if the lady is going to show up and what are the mediums going to be saying, just to check if it is true. So they take medium A goes there and say, I'm seeing a lady, she calls herself the blue lady, and she tells this story. Okay. Medium B, and so forth. And they stop at that. They never once contemplate the idea of saying, why are you still here? Is there anything that I can do to help you, to go to the light, to move away? No, they go with the most famous mediums, and of course they are very prestigious organization. Very much like when they did in the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, with famous mediums like Eusapia Palladino, Leonora Piper, that lived in this country. And they are only repeating the phenomena, but not getting anything back from this phenomena. Okay, we can say this is the way you do science. Yes. But it comes to a point that you have to go after that. But it seems that they are not worried about it. They just want to prove that this is it. I don't know. At that point they had taken over a dozen mediums there that didn't know each other, that didn't have any kind of contact, and they all confirmed the same thing. They were telling us that, but that was it. It's like just pursuing the phenomena. So this is what the first category explains here. I want to see a spirit materialize. Oh, okay, good, interesting. And that's it. I'll go to sessions where, the mediums say, I see someone, letter A, B, or C here that is related to you. Okay. You see? So, yeah. That's basically how we, what Kardec is talking about here. They don't want to go further than that. They just, and although, of course, they serve a purpose, and I think it's very important for personal realization, I think they could go more. I sometimes I say, all those famous mediums like James Van Praagh. I even had the chance of going to a meeting with James Van Praagh here, very close to my home. And I was so disappointed. It was so shallow, him saying I perceive someone, and then I think even if I am there, like one of those people that know nothing, and even if he says something that can be attested, someone, a family member that is communicating, everything is okay. I would say I couldn't go leave that place without wanting to know more, understanding more. But it seems that there are people that do not have this, their curiosity goes up to a certain point. Okay. I don't know. I don't think we have time for more. So
No.
unless you have another question related to that, I think it's time for us to stop our meeting.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, but let me just see here because I wanted to tell which one is here that I wanted to tell. I guess we went through those already. I'll go look for that passage that I told you, Leo, and then I will let you know which one I told you that it seemed to be the same thing. But I think it's before. It's something that you studied last week. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this one here, the item 22 and item 23.
Mm.
I mean, when I read both of them, I said, aren't they the same? But yeah, there is a little nuance. So item 22 and 23. Okay, so Carol, would you do our final prayer to us, please?
Sure, thank you. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence and the good spirits who are with us, we are greatly appreciative of the unity and the studies this evening that we are sharing together of the Medium's book. We are grateful that we have learned so much, and through Allan Kardec, we have greater appreciation of the nuance and details of mediumship. We know that there are the wings of spiritism, the intellectual and the moral side. However, Kardec gives a greater depth to this study, for which we are truly grateful. We are appreciative of the spirits who are with us tonight, the spiritual benefactors, the mentors, and the good spirits who are assisting us, giving us greater understanding and greater wisdom with each and every week that we come together. We are grateful for what we have received, and may we continue to be blessed with these studies. May we go forth this week with our prayers, with our studies, and our mindfulness, putting into practice what we have learned. May we share it with others as they are able to receive through our discernment. We are truly grateful for the love and light of Christ to be with us, and may we share these blessings with our family, our friends, our loved ones, and even those who we come in contact in our daily lives. May we go forth this week, remembering that those who are in need, may we extend a special prayers to them. May we continue to ask for the blessings of greater awareness, greater kindness, greater illumination, and that all those who are suffering, may they receive a greater balance of courage and hope throughout the week. We close now and ask for safety and protection as we go forth to our family, friends, and loved ones. We close and ask to be beacons of light. May we go forth now in peace, so be it. Thank you.